Okay, I'd like to, I'll wait until, Jared, you let us know we're live. Cool, thank you, Jared. All right, I'd like to call the public hearing of Mayor and City Council for this Tuesday, March 16th, 2021 to order. May I get a motion, please? No, I don't need I don't need a motion. I get to call it on my own, right?
Yeah, there's only one agenda item. We don't need to approve the agenda.
Okay, I move. Can I please get a motion to approve the agenda as presented on the screen?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. We've reviewed the agenda, so I will open the floor to the public hearing regarding the purchase of 3503 and 3505 Perry Street. I think it would be helpful if we provided an overview of this agreement, just a brief overview to the public, and then they can comment. I don't have the agreement in front of me right now. I know the mayor is not here right now. Brian, I'm looking to you to maybe provide just a few words to the public to set the stage here, and then we can take public comment. Does that make sense?
Who are you asking?
I was asking you, Brian.
Oh, because Alyssa could address the legal part of it, I guess. So this is a building that most people are aware of, as Dr. Gupta and Dr. Poor have occupied for many, many years, across from City Hall on Perry Street, and it includes the parking lot. The city, probably about 10 years ago, was in somewhat of initial negotiations to purchase it back then, and that didn't really go anywhere. But recently, the doctors agreed that they would sell it to the city. The upper office building, it has approximately, I think I'm trying to calculate, 5,300 square feet of usable space. It's a little bit on the ground floor, and then the rest of it's on the upper floor. The parking lot is 6,250 square feet. It has 17 spaces, we counted. It could maybe squeeze a couple more in there. The tax value by the state is $575,000, and the purchase price is $600. As you know, usually the state tax value is less than the market value. So real estate prices are rising quickly, as most people are aware, and we just got reassessments that went up. So now, my personal opinion, now is the time to take advantage of the offer before things get even more expensive. There's been a lot of negotiation. It's taken almost a year of negotiations for various reasons. There were a few glitches along the way, but here we are. We've got the contract signed. We're required to do this hearing, and then we need to vote on a resolution to go through with the purchase. Of course, there has to be inspections and all those sorts of things before it's completely done. We are taking the money from an investment account of, I think Latasha said it was $2 million or $2.5 million. We have an investment account that's separate from our general fund. So we're taking investment money to make an investment in real property. There is a paying tenant in the lower floor at the moment, which will help. But of course, by purchasing it outright, we're not going to have any interest or debt to pay on it. But of course, we want to try to replenish our investment account. There also, of course, will be expenses as far as renovating the building because it's quite old on the inside. It's from I think from the late 60s. As far as a few ideas, this gives us a lot of flexibility. We have discussed nothing, these are just ideas I'm going to throw out there so people understand sort of why we would even consider this. One of the ideas is that we have been having a lot of problems over the years with the library on Rhode Island Avenue and with the liquor store across the street and other problems out there on the sidewalks. So there is the potentiality if the county would agree, which there's no definite agreement there. They often have resisted moving. But if we could get the library into this building with the parking lot, it would be away from the liquor store and have a parking lot. And so that's just one idea. Another is currently our economic development director is being housed in a leased space. We're paying, I think, about $17,000 a year for that leased space in the art space building. So we could potentially move him into this new building and reduce that expense for that lease. And then last but not least, well, there's also a flat roof on the building, which hopefully we could put solar panels on like we have on City Hall. And the solar panels on City Hall have been generating, we'll just say ballpark around $9,000 to $10,000 a month. And so hopefully we could get income from that. And then WMATA has been trying to negotiate with us for several years on creating a break room where their drivers can, take their breaks and have restroom facilities. They currently use City Hall during the working hours, but after working hours, they don't have a place to use. And the agreement that, well, not agreement, the conversation that we've had with them is that if we would provide such a facility for their drivers, that they would be willing to consider deeding over the rest of the WMATA property in front of City Hall to so have control of that completely, because right now we only have a few yards out away from the building that we actually control. So those are just some of the ideas, and that's sort of the background. I don't know if Alyssa might want to throw in some of the legal issues, but that's everything I could think of at the moment.
I don't have anything to add. I think we've hopefully resolved all the legal issues. The primary one related to the existence of a second tenant and whether or not that tenant actually had a claim under a valid lease, and that is being litigated, and the city is not a party to that litigation. And I don't expect that the litigation will impact the city in any way, except to clarify at its conclusion that we've taken the rest of the premises free and clear of any leases. We are adequately indemnified for any costs relating to that litigation. So I think the salient points of the contract are simply that you will close on or before May 3rd. And prior to that, you have, as you explained, Brian, a study period to determine whether there are any problems with the building that will make it unsuitable for your proposed uses.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I see that the mayor has joined us. Mayor, I'm going to give you an update on where we are.
Thank you.
You are quite welcome. We have approved the agenda. We opened the public hearing. Brian provided a wonderful summary of the background of the negotiations that led up to this point. The space itself, the square footage on the first and second floor, some potential uses for the property, some potential requirement for rehab on the property. Just a really good summary of the sale. Alyssa just finished with the legal there that you heard. So we have not gone around the council for comment, and we have not heard from the public yet. So that's where things stand, and I can turn it over to you for proceeding.
Thank you so very much, and thank you all for bearing with me. I was driving as fast as I could without getting a ticket. Thank you so much. And Brian, thank you for bringing this up to date and getting everybody up to date on where we are with this. Generally, if the council hasn't had an opportunity to speak, that's normally not a big issue because it's open for the public. Each of you have been thoroughly briefed, and you've also participated in most of the meetings that got us to this point after the negotiations for the building. I'm not sure if I need to say anything because Brian is thoroughly up to date. Lissa, of course, has handled all the legal necessities that are out there. And of course, the floor is open for the public to ask questions, raise any concerns, or let us know anything that they'd like to talk about 3505 Perry and 3503 Perry. I'm glad they're in the right order this time. Any questions from the public? Any comments? You don't even have to have a question. You can have a comment about it if you wish.
I have a comment. This is Ophelia Baxter.
Thank you. Hi, Ophelia.
30th Street. Hello.
Hi, Ophelia. You have the floor.
Oh, hi, ma'am. I hope your coffee is better soon.
With
I
bronchitis,
just
honey, I
wanted
don't know.
I just wanted to know the tenant that's in there. I'm assuming that that's a arrangement between the doctors that were there before and not the city. And I wondered, however, are we trying to break that lease? And if so, will that give us any bad press because we bought the building?
Let me answer that. Dive in with both feet. Brian is also on, and so is the attorney. At this moment, the tenant that is in the lower half of the building belongs to Dr. Poor. Until the property actually change hands, the tenant is the tenant of Dr. Poor. Council has discussed. I don't know if we even arrived at a decision, but at this point, with the discussions we've had, we would keep the tenant until such time we decide which way we're headed with the property. The tenant is actually paying rent, which also helped defray the cost of what we're doing. And so we think that is a plus and an asset. I think the tenant you may be referring to otherwise, if you were referring to what Alyssa had said, has not been, is not, and probably never will be a tenant in the building. It is a tenant lease agreement that the other owner is dealing with, and it has nothing to do with us.
Okay, but it won't reflect negatively on us
Oh,
when the
absolutely
property
not.
gets. Okay.
Mm-mm. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely not. In fact, if you listen, I said it's an asset. And
Okay.
we're glad to have that asset because that means it's still working.
Mm-hmm.
All the property tax for this year or last year has been paid. The water is on, the gas is on, the electric is on. So we don't have to worry about freezing pipes and who's paying the bill. Right now, the tenants and the owners are. The city has
Okay.
outlaid no money.
Okay. Okay. And when will we purchase this building?
The goal is to get it finished by May the 3rd. We've been after this and working on this since June of 2020.
Wow. Okay.
Well, it took a lot. It took a lot of work just to get us to get to clear and make sure
Mm-hmm.
that the building was free and clear indeed for the city
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take and to be able to put into use. I was not
Okay.
here for Brian's discussion about possible usage, but let me
Mm-hmm.
just say to you in five of six different scenarios. Number one is a potential building for moving the library and it has parking. Number two, parking is a big issue in downtown area, and we will not have total asset access to that parking. Number three, the building could also reduce the city's cost by moving the economic development specialist out of place where we're paying roughly $17,000 a year to have a place for that person to be housed since we had run out of space and we hadn't gotten Potts Hall ready to move forward. A
Mm-hmm.
fourth, a fourth real major piece for me is it will provide us um, a negotiating point, for lack of a
Mm-hmm.
better word, to get WMATA to donate the rest of the plaza to the city as a
Mm-hmm.
city-owned piece of property because we will be able to house them either there or in the bottom floor of Potts Hall. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
those discussions haven't really taken off yet, but that
Mm-hmm.
is where I see the mayor and council going with that in terms of giving the city not just asset, but it gives us a way to move forward and close almost 30-year gap. 1994, the city entered into agreement that most of the mayor and council was not aware of with Ramada about purchasing that lane in front of
Mm-hmm.
City Hall. And I
Right.
guess when I came back on the council in 2002, we got hit with a letter that said we owed WMATA $64,000. We
Mm-hmm.
were working with Will Campos to try to get that property handled through Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. Somewhere that ball got dropped, and we kept going back and forth until WMATA came back and said we need to pay up or shut up or here's the deal that we could put on the table. And so the deal they put on the table was they need some place for their guys to be able to have a turnaround, to have a rest area when they're not on the bus that was available and amenable to them even on weekends. And so we see this as a way of meeting that and getting the plaza without having to put out any other cash.
I have one last question, Mayor, and
Yes.
that is, if the library were to move to that building, the building that the library is currently in and which had recently been renovated, does that belong to the city or is that the county?
All of that belonged to the city. And let me say what I said to council roughly 2 weeks ago. When I came on council back in the 80s, whatever time it was, the city did not have a serious portfolio of any kind. And over the last 15, 16 years, the city has been able to amass property that it can put in its portfolio so that when it want to go after a bond bill or it need to have some leverage or collateral when going to the bank, we own the library, we own the old city hall police the police station, the alley, Potts Hall, and the current City Hall. If you add to that the purchase of 3503 and 3505 Perry Street with the Public Works Department, which we've owned since I came to the city, and the new police station, which was acquired and renovated during my tenure. So I think the other group finally signed the papers on it, but we went together and got it renovated. The city has a pretty wide portfolio now of properties. And and I've asked for this, if we could get all of our properties assessed value and put in as part of our assets, the city now has a really nice portfolio for moving forward and for leveraging against any other things that we may want to do in the future. So overall, the city is in a good position from my point of view. And I've heard it from MEA, which is the Maryland, whatever the name is, and Mr. Iannucci and several others, that the city now is in an excellent position for doing some of the other things that we may wish to do.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was the extent of my questions.
Thank you so much, and I hope I answered it sufficiently.
Yes, you have.
Anyone else, please? Just for the record, I would like to say that your mayor and council over the past several months, even year, we've been looking at how can we position the city going forward for the next 5+ years. If you look at what we've been doing with the Memorial Park, if you look at the fact that we did a street study to try to get our streets and curbs and gutters in order, your city is in probably one of the best positions that it's been in years. The goal for us has been, and I hope will continue to be, making Mount Rainier a destination, not just a place that no one knows anything about. I was kidding with Brian, I think, roughly a month ago, and I was trying to remember what was my first slogan when I ran for mayor. I figured it out, Brian. I wanted to be a city on the move, and we were moving. And then we got to the place where not only were we moving, but we suddenly became a destination. And if you go back and look at the Washington Post and some of the other places that have written about us, Mount Rainier is not only a green city, but Mount Rainier is a destination for anybody you talk to now. They know exactly where Mount Rainier is, and they want to be us. Luke, I saw your hand.
Yeah.
Mayor Miles, we have 3 minutes left for this meeting.
All right, Luke.
Another meeting right after.
I'll pause if there are any more public comments and then save my comments for the end.
I didn't see any other hands, and I didn't hear anyone else. Luke, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to piggyback a bit on what the mayor was saying and explain, my own approach to this. One of the things the mayor mentioned was Mr. Iannucci and, when he's looked at the city and what he's thought about our potential. We've also had conversations with Secretary Holt of the Department of Housing and Community Development And I know I've had conversations with Peter Shapiro of the Redevelopment Authority. And one thing, I know the mayor has said in public, and what these folks have said to us is it's important for the city to have a complete set of property. And what's really great about this purchase, and the mayor's really owed a lot of credit here for building the relationship with these doctors that enabled us to get this contract. That would not have happened without the mayor building that personal relationship. So we're just very appreciative about that. But with this set of property, now you have a property going from the library through Potts Hall, City Hall, across Perry Street, with a parking lot.
It's a parking lot.
And what that enables us to do is now we can approach somebody like the Department of Homeland Housing and Community Development or the Redevelopment Authority, and we can say, look, we've got this set of property, and we can tell them what our interests are. We need, whether it's staff, whether it's the library, and now they have options. We can say, these are our interests, these are what you need, make it happen for us. And now, given that set, that provides them with flexibility, and these entities love that kind of flexibility because whether it's developers they're talking to, whether it's even the library county system you're talking to, that flexibility makes for ease of business. And that makes it so attractive for them to do business with the city of Mount Rainier. It's hard to say we just have this one piece of property and we want to do 7 different things with it. They're going to be like, well, that's just going to be, too much. But this is like, we have 7 buildings and we want to do 3 things with it. And that's like, oh, well, we can make that happen. So it just really is attractive to people, and just a really great deal from my eyes. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Selena, haven't heard from you, and thank you for getting me here, Selena, because without you and your text, I would have still been floating, trying to get home. Thank you.
Yeah. No problem. To add to it, it's also the fact that, DC keeps moving towards Mount Rainier, Brentwood keeps moving towards Mount Rainier. Route 1 is already basically like either sold or about to be developed. And the fact that we have key pieces through Rhode Island is very essential when we come to decisions of what we want also in our city, because it's not just like how they're going to be developed, but also the decision of what is going to be in our city. And if we do not have pieces of it, other people decide what they're going to try to put more predominantly. So that's definitely the other thing. Is like we have been very aggressive also working with grants and been getting grants. So you're going to be seeing a lot of also changes coming when it comes to like the the Rhode Island Avenue as well. So that's a lot of work that's being put through to make sure we maximize our dollars for the budget, but definitely maximize them when it comes to grants. So you will see the Penny Royal Station, the winery, like Memorial Park, but at the same time, you will see the facade improvement on the block where the police station is at, because we just got 50,000 as well. And once 3,200 goes up in Rhode Island, you also will see that change. So that way we need to be able to have the pieces to be able to be, key players when it comes on the decisions that are being made in our city. So I think it has been very strategic, the pieces that have been purchased. So now we all like various sections of it in order for us to like continue to grow our portfolio, and everything shows like having properties expands your portfolio for our side. I mean, we just sold it for 1.5 million, 3,200. That I heard there was some hesitation of other people trying to, but it was persistent also to make sure it happened. So I think that this is definitely a short and a long-term plan we're working on, and this is the reason why this piece will not only double the parking on it, but also the space that we occupy. So now you only have the municipal parking. Now you'll have 2 cents of parking. So not only that, I feel like every time the city wants to do big event, we always have to go around borrowing spaces for somebody, and we're always like at the mercy of other people. So now we're able to also have some input when it comes to the things that are happening in the city, but also in the events that we want to have, we have space to make it happen. So I will stay with that.
Thank you so very much. Let me go to Scott Cecil. Scott,
Hi,
I can't
Mayor.
see you. How are you?
You should be able to see me.
I see you now.
well,
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. Considering that this meeting was for public comments and we're out of time, I'll just hold my comments for the next meeting.
All right. Thank you so much. Any other comments from the public? Hearing none. Thank you for those who did come. Thank you for those who participated. Thank you, Luke, for getting the meeting going. Again, Selena, thank you for getting me to the meeting. Brian, thank you for summarizing and making sure everyone understood what was there. Alyssa, thank you for coming off vacation to actually participate in this. And I hope I can carry us over now immediately into the legislative meeting. So may I get a motion to adjourn from the public hearing?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning the public hearing, let it be known by aye.
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 Opposed, hearing none, the public hearing is adjourned. I'd like for us to review the special legislative meeting of the mayor and council. This special legislative meeting was called for the sole purpose of addressing the issue that we were just listening to at the public hearing. And Alyssa, our attorney, is here. This meeting is scheduled for 6:30 p.m. and it's a virtual meeting, so I hope all of you will stay with us. Let's review the agenda really quickly. I've called the meeting to order. Our review of the agenda states we will be dealing with old business. It's going to be Resolution 02-2021, which will be the purchase of 3505 and 3503 Perry Street. It is open for a read and a discussion. I think we've had one reading and discussion already. So Latasha, Alyssa, will you give us a fair summary of what's in the resolution?
I'll defer to Alyssa.
Okay.
Alyssa, it's all yours.
I'm here. Hold on, I'm just trying to grab it. Oh, that is why I can't grab it, because it's not on my screen. Give me one moment, please.
Can you share it from our screen, Alyssa?
I can't access the document in your screen, so I'm just going to pull it up on mine.
Latasha, can you just give her control of the
Can
screen?
you see it?
Just share the screen with her. If you give her sharing, she can push it up and down.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, not yet. Now I don't know what I did.
Well, when I gave her, she has power now, so she has to share her screen.
Okay, you can share your own screen now, Alyssa, with the document.
Okay, hold on one second. I need to open it then.
Yes, and you don't have to look for it. While she's doing that, I just would like to make a comment. It has no relevance to anything except that I'm going to say, once I go off the council, I will be an expert on Zoom meetings. I am not doing 5 to 7 Zoom meetings a day. And I'm learning how to share my screen. I'm learning how to roll the agenda up and down. I can do all that stuff by myself. A year ago, I didn't even know what Zoom was. Thank you so much, Scott Cecil, for introducing.
Latasha, I cannot figure out how to do the share.
Okay. Can
Hold
you
on one
give
second.
me?
Wait. I got it. I
Okay.
think.
Yep, you got it. It's swirling anyway. There it is.
Okay, I can't see what you're seeing. Okay. I'm sorry.
I don't think you actually have to see it, Alyssa. Just give me a fair summary. Yeah,
Got
you don't
it.
have to read the whole thing. Please
Yep.
don't do that.
No, I will not. Absolutely
All right.
not. All this resolution does is specify the property you are proposing to acquire and set forth the circumstances relating to that property. And in its adoption will authorize the mayor and the interim city manager to take all of the actions necessary to acquire the property, including the payment of the required consideration, and to accept and record a deed.
All right. That's the fair summary of what the resolution covers, and it allows us to pay for the property, to go to settlement, and to do all those things necessary to make the city full owners of the 3503 and 3505 Perry Street property, currently owned by Dr. Gupta and Dr. Poor. Any further discussion by the mayor and council? I'm going to go to Scott first, since he declined to speak at the last one and was holding his comments. Then I'll go back to Luke, then to Brian, then to Selena, since the three of us also had a chance to speak.
Thanks, Mayor. That's really nice of you. I don't have much to add. I think the four of you, between your comments, really said everything that needs to be said. So I'll just take a brief moment to, Mayor, thank you for all the work that you've done. You know, when someone said earlier that this has been being worked on for almost a year, I was like, no, it can't have been that long. But then I realized the reason I thought that's because I'm not one of the people that's been doing any of the work. So you have, and so has Brian, and even Luke and Selena to a certain degree, as I understand it. And all I've had to do is show up to meetings and answer emails. And so I appreciate all the work that you did. And this group, this council, the five of us, one thing that should be said is in our 2 years as this group of five people together, we definitely have an outstanding record, in my opinion, on managing property in the city. As Selena pointed out, we were finally able to sell 3,200, and then now we're making this move. So I really look forward to working with Luke and Selena moving forward into the future and continuing that legacy and just growing on what Mayor Miles and Brian have helped the city build over the years. So thanks everyone for your work. I'm very excited about this next step for the city and looking forward to continuing that into the future.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Selena?
I already said it my piece, but thank you for all the work being put through this and for carrying us through this point as well.
All right.
Thank you both.
Luke, anything to add?
Austin just showed up to deliver me dinner, and he had on a dress shirt with a bow tie, and he had his thing around his arm like that. So it was very sweet. I have no other comment on this, so I'm just wasting.
All right, Brian.
Cute.
I just thank you, Scott, for your kind words. First of all, I agree with everybody's comments about the mayor really being the key player here. I witnessed many meetings with at least Dr. Gupta, and the rapport there is what really carried us through this. And as I mentioned, Mayor had mentioned earlier before you came on that you actually had started negotiating to purchase property about 10 years ago.
Yes.
And it didn't go anywhere. And so when it came back around, it was like a miracle falling from the sky. I remember you calling me that day when he called, and you were just on cloud nine. You could not believe that after all these years, suddenly out of the blue, he called you.
Yes, he did.
He wanted to sell it to the city, and that's because we've had a good relationship all these years. And it also reminded me of when the Eastern Star folks called the city and offered to sell Potts Hall back in 2010. And again, it was just like this thing fell out of the sky. And thank goodness we had councils who were savvy enough, and even though it was expensive, realized it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, which this is as well. So I just want to thank you again for all your work on this, and just it's amazing that we've gotten this done, and that you've got a council that's fully supportive of this. I mean, it's a chunk of money, but it's an investment, and we're not going to be here to decide what happens with the building, but we've given that opportunity to future councils to have a property to play with, in a sense, and to develop. So that's really wonderful. And I think I said all my piece about why I support this earlier in the public hearing. So I think I'll stop there.
Luke, did I get you already? Yeah, Brian was last. Thank you. I'd just like to make one last comment, because I wanted to really sink in. The city owns the heart of the city now, and it has parking to go with it. Not one parking lot, but two. And so I remember when Janelle Wallace and all of us worked so hard, along with Chris Van Hollen, to get that $250,000 to really fix that parking lot up that we're currently using. And we wanted so much to do just what we're doing now. In the early days, RDA wanted to help us buy the Gupta property and the parking lot to make parking for the downtown Mount Rainier area, and we couldn't do it. It's done. And I think you all have an awful lot of great choices to make to go forward. The only thing I regret is that I didn't get the white building too. I did not realize it was up for sale. And somebody, I think from downtown, I think Bowman Kinney bought that building. Somebody got that building. Just imagine if we had been able to get all of that and then make some major decisions about where the city goes. Who knows? We may still get it. Thank
It
you
might
so
fall
much.
from the heavens, Mayor. Everything's
Uh,
possible.
Listen, if it doesn't fall from the heaven, maybe we can talk them into selling to us, or maybe donating it for $1. You know, that's where I had Dr. Gupta for a while. I just couldn't get him to take it. What's your pleasure? Anybody from the online like to talk about, ask questions, or move forward? Hearing none, I'd like to get a motion to approve Resolution 2-2021, the purchase of 3503 and 3505 Perry Street.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Any opposed? Hearing none, we are unanimous on this resolution. Thank you so much. May I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning, let it be known by aye.
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 Opposed, none. This meeting is adjourned. All right. Thank you all so very much. We should have a 16-minute break because the work session does not start until 7:00 p.m. What is your pleasure and what you'd like to do now?
Can we?
Yeah, break would be great.
A break is now in order. So please come back at 7:00 p.m. You can't change the starting time of the meeting because
No, I
we
was
publicized 7:00.
I was gonna ask council if they could review the agenda so that way when we start at 7, they're ready to go.
Now they got to do that when I call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Mayor,
All
you
right.
don't need me for the work
It is 7:00, 7:01, and I need to finish this phone call to make sure I'm clear on what I'm doing, all right? So if you can give me a minute, and as Selena suggested before we went out, I guess, is everybody back? Scott, Brian is back, so Selena is back. Where's Luke?
Luke just came in.
Luke is in, where's Scott?
He's there.
All right, we can call this meeting to order, and I think I'm clear on where I'm headed. Are we on the same page?
Yeah.
Rolling agenda, ordinance, parking meters. I'm good. Thank you so much. We are ready to move this one. And if it's left out, can you all hear me? Because I keep going in and out on this one.
We could
didn't
hear
hear
you right now.
The last two were very good. Did you notice I didn't have any problems? That's because I have a brand new computer.
Yeah.
I have a Dell something. It doesn't have enough memory for me, but this thing all built into one. So I don't know how that's going to be, but I'm liking it so far. All right, it's 7:05. 7:02. I'd like to call the work session of the Mayor and Council for Tuesday, March 16, to order. The meeting was to start at 7:00. We're at 7:02. Did you have an opportunity to review the agenda? Did everyone have an opportunity to do that?
Yeah, I just have a question for Alma. Did the owners of 4214 29th, did they respond to you so that we know?
Yeah, they said they were going to be in the call, so I'm not sure. Let me try to connect with them.
Okay, and once again, council, I am taking off the one with me. I did not work on it between the last meeting and this one, with the appointments to the Citizen Police Review Board. I don't know if I've incorporated everything, but I will be ready for the next round. So I can definitely take that one off. I also understand I would like to leave it on here, but the assessment and taxation fees for creating the new category for our apartment buildings, my understanding is it's something we can't do, but I would like to leave it on there for the simple fact that, why am I not on the screen? Can you all at least hear me?
We could hear you. Yeah, I was gonna say if
Okay.
you could please leave it so that we could explain why.
Yeah, so we can explain why. So I like to leave it on there rather than take it off. Are there any other items that should come on or go off? If not, the goal of the meeting tonight is to get everyone out of here by 8:30, 9 o'clock at the latest. Can we do that? All right, let's go. May I get a motion to approve the agenda with the amendments that were made?
So move.
So
Second.
All those in favor of the agenda as approved, let it be known by aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, we have an agenda. I'm going to turn over number 3 to, I guess, Alma and to Mr. Colonel Austin, who's presenting with that. The application is in your package.
I think Alma was trying to get the owners or the architect to present. I don't think they're on the call. You might want to just move it to lower.
Food is ready to be eaten, Hayden. All right, so what do we want to do? We want to take the next item, and when the person is online, I'll bring them to the table.
Yeah.
That way we won't waste any time.
Yeah.
There is an amendment, number 4, to Chapter 7. Chapter 7 licenses and permits. Mr. Netler.
Okay, so this goes in tandem with the item, which I guess is going to be next because we took the police advisory board off. So we've got 3 different places in our code that deal with temporary storage units, and they're also sometimes called construction dumpsters. So I did it in 2 different ordinances just to make it easier because I could have combined it all into one, but it would have gotten very confusing very quickly. But they do work in tandem, and I'm making them both I've suggested we make them both in effect on July 1 together, so that because they have to work together. So basically, in this one, Chapter 7 and 13, they both have information or text about temporary storage units. So basically, we're moving the text from Chapter 3A and 13. 3A is the other ordinance we'll talk about in a little bit. And moving it to Chapter 7, which is where the permits and licenses are. Because basically, the whole gist of this is that you have to get a permit for a temporary storage unit. And I'm also taking out the language using construction dumpster because a construction dumpster is a type of temporary storage unit. So that was another confusion. We had a permit for a construction dumpster, but we didn't have a permit for a temporary storage unit.
That's right, we don't.
So, but we intended to, we just never did it right. And that's because
right.
everything was scattered. So I think I remember asking Alma about it. Would it be best to move everything into permits? And she agreed that would be easier. I hope I'm not misquoting what she said. So that's what this does. It basically, in effect, does that. It takes, and then also it changes the fee structure for the permits because I know we've had discussions about that. And that is the gist of the changes to 7 and 13. Chapter 7 and 13, excuse me. Any questions, I will gladly attempt to answer. I think this one has comments again in the Word document. I think this one does. Yeah, there's comments in here in case you want a little bit more explanation of what I did.
Okay, thank you. Brian, let me just kind of say for me, and I can't speak for anyone else. I have not had the best reading week of any, so I can tell you I have not read it if it was already in my packet, which it seemed to be. But I will read it and be prepared to provide you with comments.
Sure. Okay.
All right. May I go to Luke, then to Selena, and then to Scott?
I'm good with this. One question I would have is there any concern, and maybe this is an Alma question, that people who get, a dumpster for construction wouldn't realize that this code applies to them if they just looked at the code because they'd see temporary storage unit? Or is that really, am I just thinking too hard there about that? And not that I would change anything in the legislation, but maybe change the title or something like that to just clarify that, what this definition is. And I might be overthinking things. I'm just spotting it as flagging it as an issue.
Well, that's a good point. We could leave the construction dumpster. We could say construction dumpster or temporary storage unit. You're right. I hadn't thought of it that way. If that would be easier, I'll let code compliance comment on that. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Thank you. Good call. Good call. Selena?
Sorry, wrong button. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I said a definition would definitely work. I have not read it too much into 100% detail. I'm gonna read through it, Brian, a little bit more to see what's on it. But I think definitely we need to be able to differentiate and make sure that they get the permit, because we do get a couple complaints from the neighbors, where they feel like the trash cans are camping there, and then it's bringing rodents and a mess to their yards as well. So thank you for putting this initiative together.
Thank you so much, Selena. Let me go to Scott, please.
Brian, do you know off the top of your head what Chapter 3A is, where you took this from?
Yeah, that's the building permit chapter, or building code.
I don't have any questions. I'm 99.9% sure that I can vote yes on this. So looking forward to the first reading.
All right. Thank you so very much. With that, I've stated mine already, Brian. I think we should move forward. But Luke, I think your call was awesome. I think people should know that there are two, as opposed to looking at that one and not knowing the other one. So, Brian, anything we can do to make the two combine?
Yeah, that's easy. I just hadn't thought of it that way, so I appreciate that. That was good.
Yeah, great move. Thank you. Let's go to the next one, please. I'm sorry. No. Do we have audience? Any comments? This is the work session. And if you have comments on this, I think you get 3 minutes. Hearing none, now I'm prepared to move to the next item on the agenda.
Okay, so this is the tandem ordinance. Basically, it's moving. Oh, first of all, it's correcting. We have a property maintenance, the International Property Maintenance Code. We
Yes.
have the old one in the ordinances that I'm updating it to the one we're actually using, and the one that is
Okay.
online. That's
Okay.
a simple fix. And then I'm cross-referencing some of the sections dealing with the International Property Code to the code sections of the city code that deal with those issues.
Very good. Thank you.
Telling them where they are. So that's in there. And then, of course, as I said earlier, temporary storage unit language, it's in this chapter is being moved to the licenses and permits chapter 7 so that it's all together in one place. And that's the
Thank you so much. There's not a lot of changes here, simply updates and making sure that the right codes are referenced in our codes compared to the old ones that we put in and never took out, and yet we were using something else.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start this time with Scott. Go to Luke, go to Selena, then to Luke.
Yes, thank you. And sorry, Brian, I should have just the answer to my question was literally on the screen for last one, so sorry about that. Yeah, I don't have anything to add, and sorry for having my camera off. I got really hungry and I decided that I needed to eat, so that's what I'm doing, but I'm here focused and listening in, so thank you.
Oh, Mayor, can I'm sorry, I did miss one important part of this.
Okay.
This is something we discussed a long time ago. I forgot this is also in here. It's adding a list of what the council considers to be code compliance priorities, and that is being added here. So I don't want to
lose that.
I want to make sure everybody's. It's all very bright red, so you can see it. But we did discuss this earlier, and I changed it a little bit. But you know, this is just another part of this chapter.
Thank you so much, Selena.
Thank you, Brian, for putting this together. Definitely was needed to be up to date with the information. I think, once again, a lot of the trouble that our residents are having is they don't know what part of the code to follow because it references different things, and this at least like combines and it sends them to the right direction. And so I went through them, and so far they looks good. So if something else comes up, I'll send it your way before voting.
All right, Luke.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate the carve out for where the international code is. We have exceptions and it's superseded by our code section. And I take it. I just need to read through A4. 3A 105 A4 to make sure that's consistent with what we have in 3024, or sorry, to make sure 3A 105 A4 is consistent with section 6112. I think it is, because I think section 6112 deals with just the property itself and not the tree box. And I think here in section 3A 105 A4, we're talking about the tree box. And so I think we're okay. So
yeah, I mean, it might help. I have comments. I don't know if you can see the comments, but it might help you. It shows you what the language of those sections are. Well, it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't show you what. Yeah, you're right.
But I think it's good, and I'm gonna, while you guys are talking, I'm gonna pull up, because I have the document for the 6112 on my computer, so I'm gonna pull it up real quick and just take a glance. So I'll raise my hand again, Mayor, if you want to come back.
I think everybody's gone. I am not going to comment. As I said earlier, I have not done a lot of reading this week. I will read and get back to you, Brian, on both of those.
Okay.
So, Luke, if you have comments, could you just share them with us? Because basically we're not doing anything with these tonight except comments or seeing where we might want to comment, because no action will be taken.
I'll email Brian then if I have any changes. Thank you, Mayor.
Email all of us so we can see what your changes are. So we're all on the same page, please. Thank you so much. Take me to the next item, please. Okay, I'm going to let Selena and Latasha tell us about this one. Scott, I think you need to kind of be there so you can ask questions, if any. But I believe this one is relating to us trying to create that sixth tax level. Selena and Latasha, we
Yeah.
sent it to the state, and the state said, go ahead.
No, so originally I emailed Latasha regarding a question, why was the barriers we have, because I knew there was a reason why we couldn't do an FY22, and there was a question about why not FY22 instead of 23. So upon asking SDAT, the taxation assessment department, they came back with an answer. Currently the classifications that we have in the city, all 5 of them line up with the classification that SDAD have. So that's
Right.
Article 8-101. So that's where it's at. So their thing when they're communicating with us is that, like, if we decide to do a subsection beyond that, they don't have it, and it's gonna take extra work. And not only that, it has to go to the state for them to classify, and not specifically just to Mount Rainier, but as a state subcategory. The other thing is that we would not be defining what the subcategory might be, or even the limitations of that. What we define as small apartments. We could suggest that, but also means that what applies to us could apply to everybody else in the state, and they will go with whatever applies to the state. They strongly said it's going to take years to get it done, and in their own words, SDA will not be in support of adding any new property class at this time due to the burden it will place upon the agency. They made it very clear, not only are they dealing with COVID and everything that comes with it, but this is like years in the work to be able to collect the proper data to make that taxation class available. So that's straight through from the taxation and assessment department for the state. So I will leave it with that. So I think that at this point, it won't be able to happen FY22, probably not even FY23. And it will take a lot of work at a state level to push this and lobby on our behalf to even make it consider. So any questions? Let me. I'll stay with that right now.
I would say the long and short of it is we can't do it. It's not something that has been done, and they cannot make a law that applies to only one municipality. We have 157 municipalities in the state of Maryland, and all of them would have to be considered under the constitutional law and enactment 23A. So at this point, it's off the books, and it's not something we can do. Any comments from Brian? I see your hand.
So I guess a question for Alyssa would be, would the city be able to refund small apartment buildings the tax they paid? In other words, I don't know if it's a due process issue or treating, I don't know if it would be a problem if we said, okay, anybody has less than 10 apartments, the city will give them back a certain amount, percentage or whatever of the taxes they paid, because it really isn't fair that these small buildings are paying the same amount as these giant complexes. I don't know if we'd be allowed to do that, but it was an approach we could try if it was legal.
Hello. I guess the question I don't know who hand I see, but let me go very quickly. Latasha?
No, that wasn't me.
No, but I wanted to know if you wanted to comment on that.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Okay. Then I'll go to Scott, because it might have been Scott trying to get my attention, because I asked him to pay close attention so that it was something that kind of came out with Miranda when she put the classifications on the board one night. And then we had some rounds around about it. We couldn't do it last year. We brought it back this year. It was something we were interested in, particularly Scott. Scott, you have the floor.
Thanks. Yeah, that was not me. So somebody still might be out there that was trying to unmute. I'm not sure. Selena, thank you so much for doing just the legwork and the homework to figure out what was going on here, because I know you cared about this issue a lot as well. And I really appreciate you addressing up front, the question I had last meeting whenever we talked about this, about the timing on what fiscal year we could do it. I appreciate your explanation and I accept it. I will say that part of me, if I understood your explanation correctly, we can't do this not because we legally can't. We just can't because it would take quite a long time to implement it, and it's something that the state would have to do and would have to universally apply it to other municipalities. That makes sense to me. But I think if we still want to do this, we should be proactive about at least putting together what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like we should proceed. If this is in fact going to take years, which it sounds like it will, then I think there's nothing to prevent us from proceeding as if we still intend to do this. Because as Brian pointed out, there's two sides to the coin of why to do this. It's not only to provide relief to owners of buildings that have fewer than X number of apartments, but it's also to make sure that the owners of huge properties are paying their fair share. I also wanted to just say, if we just ultimately can't ever do this, which sounds like it is possible, property taxes are not the only way that we can differentiate or treat apartment owners differently. So we may also consider looking at how much we're charging for rental licensing and permit. Maybe we could charge less for people who own smaller buildings, and conversely, potentially charge more for rental licensing and permits for some of the larger property owners. So property taxes is not the only tool in our toolbox on trying to equalize things or make them more fair for the different size property owners of the apartments.
All right. Thank you so much, Luke.
No comment.
Brian, do you have anything else you'd like to add? And then back to Selena. And then I'd like to move forward off of this.
I think this is an instance where you go to your city attorney and say, tell us how we can do this, not we can't.
Not what we can't do. You know what I believe in, Brian.
Yeah. And so I think, Scott, that's a good idea about the licenses for the rental licenses, but I think also ask her if we could have a program where we could refund the property tax to a certain percentage back to a certain whatever X number of apartments. I'm not quite sure whether that would be legal, but it would be a question for the attorney.
And so back to the statement, when we go to the attorney, we want the attorney to tell us not what we can't do, but how we can get it done. And those are two great suggestions to get us started. And I would suggest that if you have any other ideas, let's put them in that email to the attorney and say, come back with a solution. If there is no solution, tell us that. But if there's a possibility, let's talk about how to do it. Selena?
Yeah, when I spoke to Mr. Rowland today, when I stopped by City Hall, the suggestion I have is if we could entertain the different licenses, because right now units 4 and under pay less than the units that are 5 and up. So that was part of it. So that was what the next step was going to be at. But I didn't address it on this because it's like two different things. Yeah. But yeah, I had already had the conversation with the finance director to see if that would be a possibility, but we also need to weigh in what it will mean when it comes to the city budget and what impact it will also have, because the 150 for units that are 4 and under are per apartment and then up. So we might have to break it internally into 3 different licenses instead of like 2 as we currently have it. And then also fit what we need, and maybe from a 5 to a 10 and then up to be able to meet the other requirements that we were talking about, to be able to help the single building small owner in comparison to like big, large corporations as well. So I'll be working on that through this summer to be able to present it. That's part of the work that, I'm glad that I had a conversation. I would have mentioned that had I not, but that's kind of where I'm at. And yeah, so I think we could propose it, but it's gonna have to take some work for us to do it. We're gonna continue doing it. That's not to disencourage anybody, but just to bring us to the reality that it would not be happening FY22 and potentially not FY23 right now with their priority dealing with COVID. So
All right, thank you all so very much. I'd like to move the agenda. One of the things I would offer you, though, so you don't lose it, that rolling agenda is coming up, and I would certainly suggest that you put it on it. Okay, that brings us to ordinance 4-2021, budgeting and financial procedures. Mr. Nedler.
I actually cannot remember why this came back to work session, but somebody probably had a question that I forgot to answer. Because
Then move it to the next one. Let's not try to figure it out.
Well, unless somebody remembers, I mean, we had a first reading, I believe. John will have to keep me straight on that idea, but and then I think I don't remember. I'm just going to be honest. I've been working on all these ordinances and I totally forget. So if anybody out there remembers why you wanted this back, feel free.
We're not gonna help you out on this because I told you my goal is 9 o'clock. We can always bring it back.
Well, I'd like to do a second reading and make a decision. If we
Make the second reading, Brian. If we don't come up with anything between now and then, council, you have the right to read it, review it, send it to Brian to make the changes. Latasha, if there are any, let's make them and let's have the second reading and vote in April. But let's not waste time trying to figure it out tonight. Next time, maybe. Well, one of the things I started with John some months ago, that he gives us a fair summary of the action items out of our minutes. And so maybe we could look at the action item if there was something on it that could prompt us right now and have him get back to us before we finish. But if it isn't, then we could do that. Make sure that the action items always carry a note on what the question is that is to be answered at the next work session. So we can expand that a little bit. Comments? Or can I go? Can we move forward? All right, thank you. Let's go to item number 9. Proposed funding, community-based food security program. Luke Scott.
Mayor,
All yours.
can I make a comment just real quick? Alma is saying that the property owner is now with us for that 29th Street, and I think this food thing might go on for a while. Is there any chance we could skip back to? It's going to be a short presentation, I'm sure. Is that okay?
Yeah, I promised that once they were online and ready, we would go back to that. So this would be an appropriate time. We haven't even started the topic yet.
Alma, are they there?
Alma, please bring the property owner up so we can get the name and then have you give us this fair summary. I think everybody's looked at it now. And tell us what's going to happen or what wants to be done.
Mr. Conner is with us in the meeting, so if he wants to go ahead and explain exactly what he's doing with his property, and any questions, just I guess I'll continue.
Can you give us the owner's name again, please?
Sure. His name is Young Kang, and that's property 4214 29th Street.
Thank you so much. Mr. Young King, how are you?
Pretty good, thank you.
All right. As is our practice, we would like for you to kind of tell us about what you want to do at 4214 29th Street. And let us kind of go from there, if you would, please.
Sure. Actually, I'm the agent. I'm the real estate agent for the owner. And what we're planning on doing is the second level on this property is very low. It's so we're trying to just take the level off and just make a whole new level, which is a lot livable than what it is currently.
So are you saying you want to raise the roof, or you want to put in a second level?
It says we're going to take the roof off and put another level.
Okay, thank you. Because the roof is probably like the attic portion of it. So you want to take it up and make it into a full-fledged bedroom or whatever, a real floor.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. I'm going to start with Selena, then I'm going to go to Luke, then I'm going to go to Brian, and then to Scott. Comments, please.
Thank you so much for being here. I guess we usually give you guys the reminder to start working after 8. If there's any trees in the property, we do have an urban forest code. And also we ask for you to protect the trees that are there as well so they don't get damaged. Has the design review board looked at this property? That would be a Brian question.
No, there's no variance needed for this one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, I'll stay with that.
Luke?
No, just to follow up on the urban tree code, make sure that you're not cutting near roots of big trees there, and that you try to make sure that the runoff from any construction doesn't go out into the street too much if you've got a lot of dirt there. So orange fencing around big trees is usually what we see happen with construction, and with the urban code, if trees are a certain diameter and you're going to cut them down, there is a fee with that and a process with that. That's what Selena was referring to there. And so I think that sums up some of my concerns. If you are also going to at all create any impermeable pavement anywhere, there's a process for that as well. So just be mindful of that. And I think that's all I got.
Okay. Yeah, there's no really large trees nearby there. There's a small one. I think the branch comes close to the house. We may cut the branch a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be disturbed at all.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to really disturb the soil because it's pretty much just the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Scott? Scott, are you going to speak?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for improving your property. We love to see it. And you're in Ward 2, so that makes me even more happy. And thanks for being willing to show up here and listen to us talk. Hopefully you'll stay and stick around a little bit for the rest of the meeting. Thanks for being here.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
All right, Brian, you get the last word, close to the last word.
So you said there's tree limbs that are close to the house. If that's a city tree in the tree box, you need to get permission from the city to trim the tree, just so you know, because we've had problems with that in the past. And then are you going to put any kind of like a new driveway in?
No, the driveways, there's a driveway there already.
Okay.
That's not changing. The tree's actually in the backyard.
Okay.
And it's not a big tree, but there's a branch that kind of goes close to it. That might, I'm not too sure if that might get trimmed a little bit, but other than that, I don't think there's going to be any tree that'll get disturbed.
Right. Yeah, a small trim on a private property tree is fine. Anyway, I just want to let you know that's a very active civic block. It is in my ward as well. So you're going to have, I hope you've talked to the neighbors or met them or the owner has, because they're going to be watching this closely and we'll be getting the emails and the phone calls if anything is awry. So it's not, I'm not saying I appreciate the project or anything, but I'm just going to tell you that 4100 and 4200 block of 29th, they are very involved with city issues. So just be aware of that. And don't let your dumpster become a problem, because that will be one of the things that will really upset people. If, for instance, if you've got a dumpster and people start dropping things off in the dumpster that has nothing to do with your construction, that can be a problem. So
okay. Question on the dumpster. On our street side, there's no parking. So can we put the dumpster on the other side?
Talk to code enforcement. Alma's on the call. That you'll have to get a permit for it, and they'll deal with it and how long you can have it there and all of that.
Okay.
Awesome. And thank you so very much for coming on to the call. Someone said they're happy to see the development with the second floor being added. I'm going to probably say I'm not as happy as they are. As I watch the city change and become the destination it is, I keep asking myself, will there be any one-floor cottage houses left in Mount Rainier when this is all done? Because I've watched now, and almost every house is getting a second floor. So I'm not the happiest, but I certainly like the improvement. In fact, I actually put a new roof on mine recently. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing the finished product.
Sure, thank you.
All right. That takes us to reviewing the rolling agenda. No, I'm sorry, food security. I'm back to food security.
Yep. Mayor, would you like me to take that?
It has Luke and Scott's name on it.
Okay, so folks, you can ignore the grant application because I know Latasha's pulling that up there. But if you remember our prior discussion, we sort of moved past that, and we had gotten consensus towards, Latasha was doing a good job with the gift cards. Maybe we could just do that again, get more gift cards, and hand those out to these organizations who are connected with these people. There are several issues that, some good issues that Latasha spotted that I don't think I think we need to give her guidance on. And so I'm just gonna name them now for discussion. Number one is the accountability trail for the gift cards. So Latasha raised the concern that she doesn't just want to hand out these gift cards to the people providing food security. She would like for there to be some evidence trail that folks live in Mount Rainier. I think from my perspective, and I'll let Scott speak for himself, these organizations that have been providing food know if somebody lives in Mount Rainier because they've been in a lot of cases delivering food to their homes. So one potential possibility for making sure these are going to Mount Rainier addresses is these organizations could say, here are the 40 residents, here are their addresses, I attest that these people live in Mount Rainier. That would make it, in my opinion, easier than the person who's receiving them producing a water bill or something. But that's just my opinion. If you want to go someplace else, that's of course up to the mayor and council. But we need to talk about that piece, the accountability piece, because I think Latasha raised a good issue and she needs feedback from us on how we want that to work. And the second thing is the money that we want. We had talked about $5,000. I just want to make sure that's the figure everyone's agreed to, because I don't know that we actually came to a conclusion on that. I think we may have missed that. So I don't know if that's a number folks agree to or not. And then the third thing is where that money comes from. So Latasha needs to know where we'd like to get that money from. I think there's probably money in the contingency, but I think, they need direction there. So to repeat back the issues, accountability, how do you guys want to deal with, either individuals have to provide their evidence, a water bill or some other evidence that they live there, or we can have the food groups attest to it. And two, is the dollar amount total. And did I miss, in what line, third, what line item to take it from? So accountability, dollar amount, line item. And Latasha may have a preference for accountability. So I don't know if we want to let her speak first and give her a preference for how people should prove things. Because I don't want to speak for her. So Latasha, I don't know if you want to jump in.
I'm not going to let you do that, Luke. I gave an order for the presentation. You present it. I need to go to Scott. Let Scott present. Then I'll ask Latasha to come in, and then I'll open it up to the council. Because you all have to present it before she can start answering questions. Thank you. You have the floor, Scott.
I don't have anything to add. Luke and I think it sounds like we're 100% in alignment. So thank you for not speaking for me, Luke, but everything you said is exactly what I would say. So I'm just excited to hear from the other three, because I got to be honest, I thought that we had landed on we only wanted to do gift cards. So I just kind of don't even know where we are as a group at this point. Really, what I would just like to hear from folks is what do we have 3 votes for? So I think that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor up to Brian.
Just to clarify, Mayor, I think it is only for gift cards, Scott. I think we are just talking about the number for gift cards. It's just how they go out.
Thank you. Got it.
All right, Brian, you have the floor.
So
and Luke, excuse me. Luke, can you hold the meeting for 1 minute? I keep it moving. I have to step away.
Sure, Mayor. Brian, go ahead.
So we just received or will receive $6 million for COVID-related relief. So what I do want to hear from the city manager is, and I know we can spend that for a lot of different things related to COVID. I don't know if there's a problem with just providing food without making sure that the person receiving the food is getting it because of COVID. I don't know that we have to prove that. I mean, there are plenty of people that were food insecure before the pandemic. That would be an issue if we have to make some kind of evidence that the person receiving the food had lost their job because of the pandemic. I don't know how hairy that would get as far as paperwork, but we do have $6 million that we can spend. Eviction prevention is another big area. I know that's not the topic, but we don't want to lose this money, obviously. But we don't have a whole lot of things that we can spend it on. And so I know Latasha is very creative, along with her staff. So what I want to hear from Latasha when she gets her chance is, the idea of using some of that $6 million to do food relief, and what kind of, paperwork bureaucracy problems might arise from trying to do it that way.
Selena, I know you haven't spoken, but I need to jump in for a minute. I don't want to confuse our community-based food security program with the new relief money that's coming. I think that's a separate program or issue. Where we were headed before we knew we were even going to get the $6 million was creating a food security program by Mount Rainier that will be there even after COVID money is gone. And I think, this is me, I thought we decided on the credit card. So we need to decide on the amount and the criteria for it, as well as the line item. Then I think that $6 million is a whole different discussion that we ought to have, which could also include food, accommodation, rent, and some of the other things we can do. So I just don't want to mix the two together, if I'm being clear. Are we different pages? Because you can tell me, man, that's not what I want.
Well, I need to know the answer to the question whether we can or cannot use the.
Can I talk to you guys then?
You have the floor, Selena. I just wanted to make sure I was being clear.
So, Brian, the definitions of how the money could be used, when it comes to the money they're talking about, it hasn't been fully, but it's going to be a long-term thing. It reaches all the way to 2024 and includes infrastructure and things like that. So it's not the same as the one that we previously got. So I'm in agreement with the mayor to do two different things. I just wanted to clarify that for you. As far as the other one, yeah, I thought we had agreed on the gift cards. Regarding the whole process, I will tell you this. I spend a lot of time with the pantry. I've also collaborated a lot with Mounties Act, the program that they have, and they deliver directly to their home. So it's like Mount Rainier Homes. When it comes to the pantry, these are people that they see pretty, often. They know where they live and all that information. So it's not this is not people coming out from outside. It's people directly from inside the city. So to me, even if we get a letter that says like this what it is, and they could give us either a sign-in sheet or like here's information of the households they went to, something more simplistic like that, it will definitely help, and it will be able to stretch the dollar because to me they've been working a lot on bulk purchases and doing a lot of that stuff, which reduces the cost of the food, so that way they could help more people instead of the person going on their own. One more thing is like they do have a survey, at least the pantry does. Every Saturday they put a survey out of the things that the community needs, and that's how they know like what they need to, that way they could buy it in bulk and help them out as well. So I will stay with that, where the money side, I think Latasha could let us know. But accountability wise, I think that at least the organizations that we have talked about, they're people that are helping directly Mount Rainier. Some of them have been also doing it for a very long time, even before COVID. The other ones that I'm thinking about as well. So to me, I don't see the money like leaving Mount Rainier. I think it's gonna stay here, just like it's been doing all this time.
The money certainly cannot leave Mount Rainier if it's city tax dollars for the city program. In
Right.
terms of money from the COVID relief fund, each municipality will be getting its own funds. So I don't see any reason why Mount Rainier funds ought to be going to Brentwood, Coleman Manor, or anywhere else. So it's going to be, like you said, Selena, over a long period of time, but they should still not be mixed in my mind. After May 10th, I won't have a word to say how we end up doing it, but just kind of keep that in mind as you move forward, please.
I agree with
What
you.
is your pleasure on this, Latasha?
So I'm fine with it. And I think that you guys are taking the accountability part way to the extreme. For me, if these organizations feed 40 families, if they come and say, hey, here's a list of 40 families, this is their address, I give them 40 gift cards, and as they give the gift cards, they have the people sign by their name and address, and they just bring me that paper back. That's all I need.
That's it.
I don't need anything elaborate. It's just so accountability is so that I can say, for instance, if someone does a PIA request, I can say, here's the names and these people verified they received it. That's it.
Yeah. Anything else now? The other question that's out there, what line item? Well, let's do it differently. What's the amount that we want to put in food security as part of our discussion? Because we are headed into finishing off this budget and getting the budget together. What does that number look like to us? 5,000, 10,000? I would say if we did 5,000, you could do 50 families. Is that 50 families over the year? 50 families for the first 3 months? How are you thinking? Are you thinking $25 or $50? And if so, are you thinking 5,000 or 10,000? Well, what numbers did you all have in mind?
When we were talking about this before, I think everybody was very much conscious about our budget at the time, and so the dollar amount was 5,000. In talking to the folks that provide this care, they felt like a $50 gift card doesn't get far, so they were looking at $100 gift cards. So at a $5,000 budget, you would get to 50 families.
That's what I said.
Yeah. So just like the mayor said. So, I think if we could do 100, if we could do 10,000 out of contingency for 100 families, I think that would be good, because I think we all know there are at least 100 families that could use a $100 gift card. And so, we could do it that way. If we want to start small with 5,000 and then have a discussion through the budget about how to do this going forward, I'm fine with that too. It's really, what folks want to do here and are willing to do. But I think that where you could take it is out of contingency for this year.
So may I ask the question, just based on the numbers? And please, I do food every single day, so I'm going to just say this outright. If you did 100 families in Mount Rainier out of $10,000, that's a one-time deal. That's not going to do very much for food security, believe me. That will handle that week, but then what happens the following week? So I'm not opposed to offering some kind of help, but I know the city cannot be the full food security source program for the number of families. I do 40 to 100 families off of my porch. And I can assure you that that's a week's worth. That's not a month. That's not the rest of the 12 months. And you got the 52 weeks. So I think we really need to ask, what do we plan to do? What do we see $10,000 doing for the food insecurity in the area?
Time.
I saw your hand, Luke, and then I'll go to whoever just said aye.
I'll ask for 5 more minutes. I believe John called time.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
I would say, I think when Scott and I first brought this up, we were, I don't know that we had this in mind to become to necessarily become a permanent thing. I think our focus was on COVID. We've talked about it becoming a more permanent thing that we could put in the budget. But I feel like where we are right now, all your points are valid, Mayor. $100 is a week. So yeah, if we want to do more, we can. But I think that would be at least some help for right now while the vaccinations are getting rolled out to people, and hopefully the economy starts coming back shortly thereafter.
Okay. Brian, I saw your hand.
So I come back to my original question for Latasha. If their proposal is COVID-related food relief, it makes a difference to me if we can get reimbursed from the $6 million that we're going to get from the feds. I'm pie in the sky, because we're not going to be able to spend $6 million for COVID relief. So if we can reimburse ourselves for COVID-related food relief from the federal dollars, then I'm on board. But I haven't heard the answer to that question.
May I ask you a question, Brian?
Yes.
You don't see $6 million being spent?
No. Not for the parameters that they give, and infrastructure is not one of them that I saw in the.
It's not.
It is.
No, it's not. I've read it.
I've read it too. It's not. But look at all the other things that are out there.
All right, but can we let Latasha answer? I know we have lots of things.
Yes, let Latasha answer. I'm sorry, Latasha, you have the floor. I sent the bill. I sent the itemized pieces to you, the layout, all that stuff. Tell me what you see.
I didn't see the food, but I'll go back and look. But I do know that they said on the call that we were on with the congressman, they said that we wouldn't, it's not I don't want people to think it's a $6 million lump in the account. It's not. They said it'll be over the course of a period of time over the years, so to speak. And there's, I think, if I'm correct if I'm wrong. Yeah, through 2024. But I think they said the first sum wouldn't come until, I think it's like summer, maybe fall. It's not getting it tomorrow. Days. Yeah, it's not tomorrow. So that's all I'll say. Brian, may I email you? Let me ask around and look in the documents where I didn't see it, but then again, I wasn't specifically looking for that.
Well, there was some very general language that if it was COVID related, so I would think food would qualify, but I'm no expert on that. But yeah, let us all know the answer to that, or maybe Alyssa has to weigh in. I don't know. But
yeah, Brian, they haven't have the specifics, and the reason why I say infrastructure is because I was in the same call as Latasha when the senator and the minority leader mentioned it, because it was brought up, but when we asked for the specific, they'll be able to get us the specific as soon as they get them. Later. But infrastructure happened to be one of them. But at least that's what I said, because a lot of people were asking, does it mean water storm? Does it mean street, sidewalks? So they couldn't give us detail, but they said that was one of them.
No,
so yes, it's not details yet.
No, you're correct. Broadband and that sort of thing was included because that helps with the school kids get connected because of the COVID. Right. Yes, you're right. There are certain infrastructures that could qualify, but not new streets, I don't think.
Yes.
Mayor, may I have the floor, please?
You have the floor, Scott.
Thank you so much. So just to get us, not that we're not off topic, but just to get us back to the questions at hand, I want to second Luke's proposal for $10,000, which is enough for $100 gift cards. And that we will, based on the concerns around accountability that were raised, it sounds like Latasha knows her path forward. So if anyone else is in support of doing that from contingency, just let Luke and I know, because then we'll know that we have 3 votes. And then, Mayor, I just wanted to say quickly, I know we have a lot of budget meetings coming up over the next couple of months. I wanted to just put this out into the ether now. Maybe, Mayor, you can call just a whole separate meeting at some point before the end of the fiscal year for us to talk about the COVID-19 money that's coming to the city and just have a public conversation about it and just figure out where we are. I know you and Brian are going to be leaving soon, but I don't see any reason to wait to have that conversation. So I hope that we can do that at some point, separate from this type of meeting or from a budget meeting.
I can do that. Thank you so very much. I actually hadn't thought about it like that. One of the thoughts I had was, I'm gone. And they'll have this conversation, and Brian and I will watch them on Zoom. But I think your point is well taken, that it would probably be good for the 5 of us along with Latasha and probably Alyssa and the budget person to actually sit down and talk about paths forward with that. And so I will look at some dates and send them out, and then everybody can respond, and let's just have that conversation. Thank you so much for suggesting it. Any other comments on this whole issue? I don't think we've solved this issue for me, because I think as I look at it, there's a proposal for 10,000. There's a proposal for 5. That's where we started. And there was a proposal to take it out of the contingency fund. And I think the other piece of that has been stated is that the agencies that are getting the money for the groups or whatever would provide the list that they're verified Mount Rainier, and we can move. Where would you like to go, and how would we like to put this on the next agenda so we can have a vote? There's no sense in beating this horse again. I'll start with you, Brian. 5,000 or 10?
I'm not going to vote for it until I know whether the federal funds can replenish the expense. I need to know the answer to that question.
Okay. Luke, where are you?
I'm at 10,000, pulling out a contingency with the goal of getting it, reimbursed from the feds, which I think is probably likely. So I just think we should do that with the parameters that Latasha laid out for the accountability.
Selena, where are you?
To clarify, we're not going to see the money until next budget cycle, so I wouldn't be counting on reimbursement for that one. But please clarify something for me. Are we allocating these cards to the organizations to give to the community, or are we giving it to them? That was not very clear with me before I could give my vote or my suggestion on it.
The way Latasha laid it out is the organizations would provide Latasha with, here are 40 names, here are their names, here are their addresses. Latasha would say, okay, here are 40 cards. When they take them to their homes, the residents would sign for them with their address. They would send that, and Latasha, correct me if I'm wrong, but then those organizations would send that back to Latasha. She'd have a paper trail, and that would be good. Latasha, did I miss anything?
Nope, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, this is minor, but I definitely want to make sure that we're getting them from stores that they purchase, because even the Safeway ones are being a little bit hard for them to get there. Yeah, I'm supportive of taking the funds out of contingency, laying out the layout. The distribution of the cards. That's something that Stefanda and Latasha already worked on, and Mr. Rowland, so it should be a smooth transition, because that's what they did with the other cards. And as far as money, Latasha, how much money do we have in contingency right now?
I'll have to email you. I don't know that number offhand. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm not going to vote in favor of this one, because I think that when I look at the process and what we've just laid out, if Mount Ike is already doing 40 people that they have designated, if the pantry is only doing the folks that they normally have coming, what happened to the folks that are not on either of those lists? If you got 100, you got 40 already at the Mount Ike, and I know you got at least 50, if I make no mistake, at the pantry. You know, Mount Rainier has a whole lot of other people that are also suffering, that are also not working, and that $10,000 is already gone, and they don't even get a swipe at it. I know at the Artist Loft, you have a lot of folks that have been unemployed, unable to sell any of their artwork or do any of those things they normally do. You have folks that are also in some of the other smaller apartments up on Rhode Island Avenue, over there on 34th Street, and over here in Queens Manor, Kaywood, that I feed every day. And they will never see one of those $100 gift cards. Even if you're going to hold out to put it back from contingency, from that $6 million that will come over the next 90 to 120 days, you're still missing a large part of Mount Rainier. If you open it up and said people could apply for it, as we did in the past with the other money, and you put it out there, first come, first serve kind of, I think it would be a lot fairer and a lot more equitable. But as it stands, I can't support it as it's out there on the floor. So you do have the votes to move forward with it, though, and you just need to kind of get it on the agenda.
Do we have time for any more comments, Mayor?
If you would like to add some time to it.
30 seconds if nobody objects.
No.
Thank you.
There's an
appreciate that.
objection of no. All right, in order to add any time to it,
I meant no objection. I meant no objection.
Well, that no came out like, no, I'm not doing this. So I have to be.
Because I kind of wanted to talk through your last comment, Mayor. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
I thought you were just being difficult.
Well, it's all good. We're so close to the end.
Yes, we are. In fact, if you keep going to the rate we're going, you'll be out by 8:30. I was going for 9 o'clock, so come on.
We're gonna miss you. We're just trying to drag it out as long as we can with you the next couple months. No, I just wanted to say, Mayor, like, honestly, I can't disagree with anything that you just said. Like, everything you just said makes sense to me. And, you know, I don't even think that we necessarily have a disagreement here, because the proposal on the floor is also not the initial intention behind this, right? The reason that I brought this up last year, and I know I'm not the only one who's brought it up, but the reason I brought it up last year is because I saw a lot of people in the community that were really stepping up and like taking mutual aid very seriously and wanting to support their neighbors. And it just so happens that 2 of them are on this council, Mayor Miles and Councilmember Benitez. You guys are doing it too. You just happen to also be on this council, and there's a lot of other people who are doing the work as well. And my intention was just under such dire circumstances to be able to fund them directly. And that's not what this is. And like, what I'm about to say is not a criticism of any of you or me or of Latasha or of the city, but I just think that, in my opinion, this is one of the things that's frustrating about the way government works, is that it could, you know, I wish that it could have been more simple, and I understand why it wasn't. I wanted to just be able to fund the great work that people in our community were already doing. And this is a whole different thing. It's a city program with just things that I never intended. So while I do want to try to give some support, you know, Mayor, what you're saying about the amount, $100 to 100 people, is not making that big of a dent in the problem that's existed for a long time, that has simply been exacerbated by the pandemic. So now I'm just filibustering, but Mayor, I hear everything that you're saying, and it just kind of has me at a loss on how to move forward.
I know. Thank you so much. Luke?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, Mayor, like, do you have, given your, I agree with everything Scott said, do you have like a proposal on that front then of what you'd like to do?
I said it already. Latasha worked it out. She put it out there, first come, first serve. She got people out there and fed on one given occasion. And Zelina also, we identified people in the neighborhood that really needed them, and we made sure they got out there to them. But we don't have a set list of folks that we've been serving every day that we're going to just hand $100 to. So if I was Mount Ag and I was sitting out there listening, I got my 40 names already. I walk up there and I need 40 of those. Case closed. You got 40 of those $100 cards and they're gone.
Well, what we could do then, if you're nervous about that, is we could do the program where it's open up for everybody, and we could allow for groups to
pick them up and take them to them, but not put in the names for them.
Or you could limit the amount that they could get. But you could do it both ways. The one concern and the one interest that I'd be interested to know if you'd be willing to address is there were some families that were getting food from these organizations in Mount Rainier, and they just didn't want to deal with giving the water bill or whatever else because they may not have it or they may not trust the government. So that was one issue we were trying to address by relying on the organizations to attest to the people living there. And so, you know, just wondering if there's a way to get around that by saying, okay, these are going to be open to everybody. The food organizations can pick a number. They can get cards for up to 10 people who might fit into that So in other words, we would narrowly tailor the concern I just stated about submitting your bill to 10 people per organization. Because I don't think there were a lot of people in that bucket, but maybe there were 10 people you could capture. So you could have your program where it's open up to everybody and everybody could come and give it. But maybe there's 10 people who each organization knows that they really don't want to hand in their gift card, but the organization knows or not, they don't want to hand in their paperwork. The organization knows they live in Mount Rainier, so they'll be willing to attest for them. And that way it's fair. These gift cards aren't gobbled up by the organizations, and maybe we're meeting everybody's interests here.
Keep in mind, the gift cards that were given out before were not limited to food. They were limited to going to Safeway, where they could buy diapers,
Yep.
where they could buy formula, where they
Same
could do those other kinds of things.
Yep. Same page. Same page.
May I say I can support $10,000 being allocated to the food security program if we allow Latasha to come up with a program that works, that also work with those food organizations. I'm not going to probably go after them unless I figure out that I have residents that I know actually need them. And then when they need them, I send them to Latasha, except for the one time when we were trying to get them to come and get their mask, and we already knew who they were. And we have a list of every single person that got one and had them go to Safeway. So I'm open to that because I know the need in this city is great. It's not minor at all. And so I could be very, very clear. Some of them are definitely undocumented. They are not going to come anywhere to get a $100 certificate. And no, the Mount Ike or some of them are not going to have it. The pantry may, which is why I think the pantry is a good place to operate, but some of them are not going there either. And it's not just us in terms of registered people that are going hungry. Babies are going hungry in this city whose parents cannot afford to feed them. And so I just stop there. I got a room full of diapers right now because I got mothers who can't afford them. We got twins in the city, and I'm buying formula. So it's not an easy thing, and the thing I don't want to get confused. It's not all COVID. Some of it is simply unemployment. And if I remember with Mount Ike, and I appreciate Jack and Nikki, some of the folks they were taking care of were people who were having COVID issues, who had the COVID, or they were isolated and they had to stay home. I appreciate that. But hopefully that's not going to be the main issue going forward. I know I just muddied up the water. I'm sorry.
No, I think all those are shared interests across the board. So I think it's just a question of how we do it and what does it look like. And so maybe the proposal that's on the table is $10,000 for gift cards. Latasha decides how those get handed out. She comes back to us. It's probably just her pulling back up the email of how can I request 3 more minutes here?
I support that because I would be willing to support that. I see I got a third thumb.
So Latasha comes back to us. She says it's probably just her pulling up an email of how she did it before, saying, this is how I'm going to do it. And we come back if we can talk about this at the legislative session so we don't burn more time, we come back and we say, all right, this is what Latasha sent us. Is for people who don't want to give paperwork such that organizations could vouch for them. If there is, there is. If there's not, there's not. And we just try to move it.
Would you be willing to cut the $100 gift cards to $50?
I keep raising my hand and you guys are
I can't see. Believe it or not, Selena, you're not even on the screen. I can't see you anywhere. So if you're raising your hand, just say Selena something so I can hear you. Because I'm looking, yours is just whirling. There's nothing there, and you're muted. I see Scott, I see Brian, I see Luke, but I don't see you at all. So you have the floor. Either way, you have the floor.
So I'll tell you this. I feel like we're like moving further and further from what I thought originally this was gonna be. My solution to it is it could be two tiers. Certain amount of money out of 10,000 could be 5,000 to do something, 5,000 to do something else. But you guys are 100%. Some of the people are not gonna come to City Hall and request this money or help out because legally, like if they go ahead and when they ask them what kind of help they got, they're concerned that because they got in city help, they might like damage them when it comes to like them getting the residency of their citizenship. And this is like not even our undocumented residents, they could also be our TPS, our dreamers, our DED residents. So even our residents with green cards are applying for citizenship. So that's what I would like, maybe a two-tier program, because some of them will not come. I'll tell you this, even like when I've done it to do the gift cards to them, I had to basically explain to them that no, this is not used against them, that the city, I mean, it's a whole entire ordeal, and there are certain places where they already feel like they're safe havens, right? So it could be a combination of both. And originally, I'll be honest with you, I thought it was to give like the organization, here's $1,000 expended, and buy all the bulk food that you need because you already like been working with the community. So that way they could expand their money more than being like, here's $100, because they're able to get better deals when they're buying bulk. And I'll tell you this, like they have worked with Mega Mart to get some of the items like very low cost in comparison to you going to any other stores. But it could be two different tiers. But I will tell you this, you're not going to be helping those people that really need the help, that have not gotten any stimulus check. They're not going to get any stimulus check in comparison to some of our residents that with this new with a new signage, they're going to be getting checks this week and next, and unemployment and different things like that. They're not going to be getting all that help. So if we make it even harder, I mean, we already saw that it wasn't because there's no need, because obviously if the mayor's filling up her porch and it's like being wiped out, completely clean, and I'm helping 500 families minimum, that tells you the need is there. So it's not like they didn't want to come to to City Hall to get the car because there was no need, but it's also the fear of what else is attached to it. So I would like two different ways for them to get the car, and have them sign now. That way we have the paperwork, so that way we know it's like more straight out forward. So I will say that, but I definitely am looking also out for a big group of the population that is struggling and it's not going to get any help.
Time has been called, or the problem has not been resolved. Selena, I think Selena, I know we ran out of time. Selena re-emphasized what I was trying to say, that there's just some folks aren't ever going to get any of that money on the cards unless we do it differently. Should we do the program? Do the program. I would also suggest maybe if you're going to do it at 50 as opposed to 100, you'll hit a lot more people, and it might be valued. I know it'll be valued in my population that I'm working with. And then Selena's second suggestion, which I also can support on some level, is that maybe you do 5,000 and support the organizations that have been out there doing the food, and maybe leave the rest in such a way that as people are identified who really need it, that aren't coming to City Hall, that we're able to reach up there. I've called Latasha and said, Latasha, this family has got to get some help. Their cupboards are absolutely bare. They've taken pictures. She said, just give me their name and their address, and I'll get it to you, and then you could get it to them. We got to have some way to reach that population that we know are here. We can't just ignore them, and figure out how we help them as well as those that are established, and they can go to social services also and get help. They can get SNAP. They can also get other kind of food supplies from the government that's there. But then there are those who they're trying to establish that they can support themselves so that they can become citizens or whatever. They're not going to come and ask you for these cards.
I know
So
we're out
not,
of time.
I said we're out of time, and I know I muddied that water. I didn't mean to, but I just know there's a population that will not be served. And when I think food security, and I said this before, I need to know what we're talking about. So you have the floor, Scott, and I know we need more time, but I want to get us out of here in a few. But this is very important to me. And if I never get a dime from here to help, I will find other resources. I'm going to feed my population. I assure you of that.
Mayor, I don't think you muddied the water at all. And I'll take credit for extending this too, because remember when I was like 30 seconds and then it turned into 10 more minutes. So it's not all on you. I just want to say, Selena, all of your comments are 100% well received, and I agree with everything that you said. So it just sounds like we have a little bit more work to do offline. So I'm committed to figuring something out. It sounds like all 5 of us are. I know Brian has a couple questions he needs answered, but I just want to let everyone know, I personally will reach out to all 4 of you individually this week to just figure out a time where we can talk and just figure out what issues need to be resolved and bring that back to Latasha and bring it to a future meeting. So just please watch for that. And I just want to say, sorry, thank you for letting me take a little more time. I'm angry because, everything that Selena said is true. And it just makes me upset because, like, what's the point of being a sanctuary city if the people who live here still don't feel safe and feel protected? And that just really makes me very angry. And I wish there was more that we could do as a city to make those people feel safe and secure living in our community, because they should be able to feel that way.
Scott, I'm going to answer you. And I would say I wouldn't feel angry. I just say let's find some more ways that are creative that make our population be included. I'll say this out loud so everybody can now watch what's coming next in the Miles of Passion. I have registered and will continue registering to become a front porch ministry, a pantry. I don't want to be a pantry because I don't do pantry type things. I take donations from all over the state. And I know I would like to start some front porch programs throughout the city where people, I saw up by Mount Rainier Elementary School, someone put a little cupboard there and they're keeping it full of food where people can just go up there and get it. This city can do a lot of different things with making sure food is available to those most in need. And we just have to talk about how to do that. I think each of us can take that ownership. I looked out there and I saw a lot of folks that never got food, and I've seen them hungry, and I've fed them before the pandemic, and I've increased it since. I think we look at how do we, as a community, reach out to those who are there that are, quote, undercover. They can't help but be, even as a sanctuary city, I am not going to put myself at risk. I'm just not going to. And so if they're not going to do it, then we have to reach into that community on a real personal level and deal with it. So we don't need to come up with a big picture. Maybe the 10,000 or 5,000 ought to be there as we identify folks. Each ward, and we have council members from each of these 2 wards. One of the things you all may be able to do. I remember a few years back, they allocated us $1,500 for our little whatever. Maybe that ought to be a place where there's a resource to help you help your neighborhood with people you identify that need that help. There are lots of ways to look at it. So I don't think it's finished in terms of the discussion, but it was a good discussion tonight, and thank you. What is your pleasure in terms of how we move forward with this? Latasha, we are asking you to offer us some solutions on how to get the money out. I think there is some consideration for 10,000. I've heard 2 people But Selena's 5 and 5. I've heard Luke at 10, Scott at 10. Brian is at 10 if the money can be replenished. And I don't think that's a bad idea, Brian. I think we ought to keep replenishing it
If
as
we
often as we
I'm
can.
at 25,000 if we can get federal money to replenish it.
And I said I just heard you. I agree with you, because if we are serious about helping to feed our population, then that fund should be continuously renewed and whatever, so that it's available to our community. I also heard that it would come from the contingency fund, and that well, I said the part that if it can be renewed, we would. So I think those are the 3 areas that we needed to be in consensus on. I think we have the votes for the 10,000. I do not agree with the $100 each one. I think we ended up with $100 this last time because we had to get rid of that money. We had to spend that money because we weren't giving any of it back to the county. And so we were able to get $100 paper certificates, which I also did not like, because we did have a few of those that did not work. I think the $50 cards would be good. I know when I work with one of my other partners, I get something like 10 to 15, $25 cards, and you'd be surprised at how thrilled people are to get that, because it will buy a pack of Pampers or whatever. It will buy the milk and the formula, as opposed to buying groceries for the week. So yeah, that's what I heard. Selena, Latasha, you need to get back to us with some recommendations. And Selena, are you there?
I'm here.
I think you can follow up with Van Hollen and Anthony Brown in terms of whether or not the money can be used to replenish, reimburse. That's the word I was trying to get to. If we spend $10,000, can we reimburse that $10,000 out of the out of the relief money, and can we do it on a regular basis?
Yeah, it's also Hoyt. That's the other one that was in the presentation.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, any one of them got the same answer. That's the same bill.
So I
So
wanted
my thing is, I don't want us crossing.
Of course.
I don't want us crossing swords again. So what I'm offering is to have you go and ask that question and bring back the answer to us, so we are all on the same page.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much. Anything else we need to ask or look for before closing this meeting out tonight? Hearing nothing, may I get a motion to adjourn?
We have more agenda items, Mayor.
I don't have any more agenda items on mine.
Well, the rolling agenda is next.
Oh, now we're down to the rolling agenda. I'm trying to get 8:30 out of here. All right, you have the rolling agenda, Brian.
Ain't gonna happen.
I guess I didn't get a motion to adjourn, did I?
No.
Sorry about that.
I'll take this on. It wasn't my item, but I'll take it on. So let's just run through this. I think you all are going to see that the mayor and I are going to need to be taking off a lot of these items. So either volunteer to take them on yourselves, or they come off the rolling agenda.
Well, you know what used to happen, just so you all don't feel pressured, Scott, Luke, and Selena, is you can leave it as it is. We can add to it, or you can simply say, when you get to your next organized meeting on the 10th of May, that you want to go through this and see what you want to keep on or take off. And automatically, anything with Melinda Miles on it comes off. And Brian Nedler.
And so the Civic Center funding's got Melinda Miles on it. Obviously, somebody else is. We'll do that until we're gone, but that's not going to go away. And hopefully, we're going to get an infrastructure bill from the feds to help with that. The exception to the tax rate for smaller apartment buildings we discussed tonight. Somehow, Melinda and I were on there, though Selena. I think Selena might want to take that on.
Yeah, Selena took care of that.
Selena, can you put that on your plate, please?
Yes.
The next one is the library, which I think the opening happened, so we can actually eliminate that.
Done.
Are you keeping track of this? I hope you are.
I'm saying that we need to do the reopening. It's not reopened yet.
The reopening did occur. The reopening you're talking about now, Selena, is an opening from COVID,
Yeah,
not from reopening from having been closed
Correct.
for a year.
Right. Yeah, that could come off.
That can come off.
The calendar, I have no idea. That's you and Selena. That's yours, I guess.
Well,
Can
we've
you
been
just leave it
asking
out?
for.
Edit? Can the library be left? I'll re-edit it so that way I don't forget what I have to do with it. Because we
What
need
do
to
you
figure
have
out
to-
what
What do you have to do with it?
I'm saying. I'm gonna re-edit it to add the word COVID after COVID reopening. That's what I'm gonna change to it. Because they have to still give us plans when they're gonna reopen it.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
You see what
wanna
I'm
make
saying?
sure- All right. Yeah. You
You
want to
just
keep.
don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Keep in contact with them. Make sure they don't just forget to reopen the library.
So can I go back to what I said earlier, Brian?
Yeah.
I think this is a waste of time.
In that.
Yes, it is, because the new council can go through here and decide what they want to keep on or take off. I got 3 more meetings
You're like in counting, right?
and counting. So why are we going to go through and add or put names down now? You all get to make that decision. I don't want to be a part of it. Because there's nothing I can do in 3 weeks. I will be working on the money for Potts Hall, but
You're just gonna leave it in their laps. Okay, fine.
yes, it's theirs.
All righty.
It is theirs.
Fine with
I
me.
made a decision.
Good luck. Buena suerte.
You guys, I wish there was like a
Catch me on the
smack
beach.
function out of this WebEx. I wish I could just smack Brian in the face right now.
Buena suerte. All right. Next item: parking meters.
All right, I can work with that one.
We got the report from parking enforcement. I have no interest in pursuing this whatsoever. You all, it's in your lap. I will only say that the parking enforcement report did not take into consideration that we were trying to figure out a way to address the apartment buildings in that zone's need for parking.
Right.
And I appreciate his report. It was great, but he wasn't taking into account that we're trying to open up spaces for the people that live in those apartments. So as you deal with this after May 10th, just keep that in mind. I did appreciate the fact I didn't realize that the Mediterranean Cafe had so many people after hours. I don't recommend keeping meters till 2 a.m. That's
They
just
never done that.
that was because of Bass, and that should end. But I'm gonna just take this off my plate. I wrote the thing for you. All you need to do is change the numbers. So it's all ready for you to tee up when you get ready to address it. I like Melinda's suggestion that we do a few more surveys. And good luck.
Well, before I see your hand, Luke, I'm going to come right to you. But I would also say, Brian, having gone through the last 3 weeks or 4, this thing is deficient. You got commercial parking now, and before, back in my earlier days, we didn't allow commercial trucks on our streets or parking. We have one business in particular that has purchased a commercial truck, wants to park it on 34th Street, cannot park it on 34th Street, but they need to load and unload. Well, we gave them a load and unload zone on Bunker Hill next to ZZ Pizza that doesn't get used very often, but they can't park and leave it there either. But that was for commercial trucks to park, unload, and take to those stores up in there and to move on. The commercial business, at least one, is asking, why come I can't park my truck on the street? This is my business and I need to park it here. And they have been being ticketed. The other one on Rhode Island Avenue, which is Creative, I think, or one of those other ones, they got so many tickets they almost got towed because there is nowhere to park their commercial vehicles. And in previous years, we haven't had that as an issue for parking because most of our businesses did not own a commercial vehicle. The Sanger building went out of business because we barred them from bringing those trucks in, loading and unloading on our residential streets. So that's an issue that's coming up. It's continued to come up, and I promise to bring it up as we look at this parking issue. And it is about parking and parking meters.
Mayor or Brian,
Yes.
whichever could answer me.
You have the floor, Selena.
Does the city have had in the past periods where they could load and unload like other cities have, that says between this and this time you could unload and load, in order to make sure that it's not a whole day kind of thing? Because you do have neighbors complaining that like they just park there and they block the whole entire thing at all sorts of times. So I wanted to know if there's like either early morning or later in the afternoon where they could like unload in that position, so that way they're with the time for not to get ticket.
Selena, we did not have loading hours and unloading hours. We had a loading area that's on Bunker Hill Road, right next to ZZ, just before the parking lot. And most of the trucks came in and they parked there. Now, because of none enforcement or compliance, they park on 34th Street in front of the business and block the entire street. And they take up all the parking. I've called and reported it. We do have a place for those big trucks to park and unload and to move. They can't stay there all day. But my issue I'm looking at now is that some of the businesses have actually purchased commercial vehicles that they load and unload themselves, that they want to park on 34th Street in front of their businesses. And I don't know how that's going to get worked out, but we can't afford it, number one. Number two, they take up 2 to 3 spaces. Are they going to be allowed to stay there all day? Or should we have what you just said, loading and unloading hours? And after that, they have to figure out where they're going to park their truck. We did the same thing with the RVs. RVs can be on the street for 2 weeks. And then there is a parking place over near the warehouses that we created that they could park their RVs. The first one that brought one and had to park it there was Carol Gandy. So I think it's time to relook at all of that and decide if that's where we want to go. Back then we had maybe 2 RVs, 3 RVs. We are now up to about 7 in the city. I'm selling mine, by the way, eventually.
The Otis Street zone is one that I came up with and created. I think it expired. I don't think that actually exists anymore, but we can look into that. But I mean, our meters don't start till 9 or 10 in the morning. I don't understand why some of these businesses can't just do it early. And so that's all for you all to decide. But you, like the mayor said, you can't have a commercial vehicles taking up 2 or 3 parking places all day long in front of. I mean, it's not going to work. So I don't know how you're going to solve that, but good luck.
Yeah. The other thing, it blocks a storefront, and that's where the businesses also complain, because now if you have the trucks line up in front, then you cannot see them. You know, their businesses, so they feel like their customers cannot also park. So it's a very fine line to maneuver between one and the other.
The others, Luke, I see your hand and I'm coming to you, and then I'm going to Scott. The other issue that we have addressed over the years is the entire issue of employees of these businesses finding somewhere else to park rather than on taking up all the meters. When they take up the meters, they block their own customers. So we offered them back in the day parking behind the police stations. We offered them parking down there at the Bass Liquor Place that now they no longer can because it's private parking. We also suggested that they park on the south side of Rhode Island Avenue so that they could use the meters that are rarely ever used. I think the parking issue has been with me since 1987, and I still don't have a solution to it. Employers don't insist on their employees parking in other places so their customers can be there. That led to a lot of the double parking on Rhode Island. Now you're talking about commercial trucks parking on 34th. It's an issue you're going to have to really start facing, because some of the businesses are saying, I want to park my commercial truck here. That leads to my last comment. We do not own Eastern Avenue. And I've had at least 1, 2, 3, 4 persons complaining about vehicles on Eastern that's been parked there for weeks, months, years. And what we've done in the past, we worked with 5D, and I did send an email to Acting Chief Austin saying, here's who you need to contact 5D. You need to contact Ward 5 council member, whatever his name is, that is escaping me, McDuffie, and say, here's the problem. Eastern Avenue is yours. You can move the cars, or you can let the city annex Eastern Avenue, and we'll take care of the problem for you. They've never liked the latter solution. So the cars will get moved. Luke?
Thank you, Mayor. In looking at the activity, and I understand it's just from one night, but it seems fair to me in just looking at, you know, how DC does it as well. And they've got some very hopping areas where you need to get cars in and out. But things seem to be consistent. If to take, for example, like 14th Street or H Street, I think parking in those areas is 2-hour parking, and it goes till 10, unless you have a zone permit. And I think that in looking at the data, I think for everything that's south of Bunker Hill Road on 34th Street, including 33rd and Rhode Island Avenues, I think you just make the time 11 o'clock and you call it a day. I think wherever you draw the line, you're going to be able to poke a hole in it. I don't think you're going to avoid that. And I just think being consistent allows you to handle the issue in a fair manner. I'm actually fine if it was midnight. You know, we could make it midnight on all those streets. If it's 11 or midnight, you just change, to Brian's point earlier, when residents can start parking their car there and not have to worry about moving it. If it's set at 11, they can park their car there at 9 and go to bed. If it's set at midnight, they can't park their car there until 10. And I think 11 is probably good. We all want the kind of economic activity in our downtown core that is people shuffling in and out. But if DC can have the limit at 10 o'clock for some of its very highly, economic activity zones, then I think 11 o'clock's okay for us. And I would just set it at 11 o'clock. I understand the big drawback with that is the southern end of Rhode Island Avenue in front of the liquor store. But that doesn't seem like a reason to be inconsistent.
I saw your hand, Brian. I think I see Scott. Okay.
So I'll just point out that, and I hear you, Luke, but we have a very concentrated mixed use area where you have 2 and 3 levels of residential on top of
the buildings.
So you have a lot more demand by residential that doesn't have adequate parking. Now, of course, the theory was that these folks would use public transportation. They wouldn't have cars. Well, it hasn't worked out that way. So you've got the HIP building, you've got Art Space, you've got the Singer Flats, you've got, all these different buildings that have people that need to park. And then you've got the restaurants and stuff under it. So you all are going to have to figure this out. You can't make it so restricted that you're not going to solve the problem of the residential parking. Because what will happen is, which is happening now, you'll force all those apartment dwellers into the residential neighborhood adjacent to the mixed-use town center, and you're going to get hellish emails from people. And let's say it's doing parking zones, which is what we're going to see, and then that gets even more complicated. So just keep that in mind. We're a little different from DC as far as the makeup of the district there.
But wouldn't setting it at 11 o'clock everywhere?
You can't have 2 bites at the apple, Luke. Write your question down. I'm going to Scott, then I'm going to come back to you, and we can continue that debate because Scott want to talk on that same subject. Scott?
Yeah, well, Selena's on fire in the chats. Everything Selena's saying in the chat is right.
I can't see Selena.
I'll elaborate on that. Sorry for
Thank you.
stealing your thunder, Selena, because you typed one of the things I was thinking. Maybe we need to do some kind of parking study, but for me personally, before being willing to shell out any money for something like that, I would just like to see more data from the city. So as was already pointed out, the thing that we were sent last week gives a breakdown about the number of citations that were issued for one shift. So it's actually not even a full day. It doesn't start until 4 p.m. So we need more data. I would like to see, I'm assuming that the police department has reports about how many citations are issued and when, and if not, that a report of some kind is able to be generated. So barring any objections, Latasha, if you and Chief Alston and Parking Enforcement Officer Cruz could get more data in front of us than just one shift's worth, that would be helpful. I'm also, not to open a whole nother can of worms, I'm a little bit concerned about how much enforcement is actually happening. I'm not going to say exactly what's in the report publicly because I don't want people to think that they can just park wherever they want and it's going to be a bonanza because it's not being enforced. But I think that I'm concerned that the enforcement's not happening enough because my understanding is that our parking enforcement officer is currently in the police academy to become a police officer. So I know some of his time is being taken up by that. And I'm not sure how much time the actual officers themselves, if any, are spending parking enforcement. So it sounds to me like we need to understand what is actually happening in terms of how many citations are being issued, where and when, and how often the enforcement's happening.
The issue you were about to go back to, Luke, I'm sorry, I was going to address that 11 thing with Brian, and then I want to give Selena the floor because I can't see her. I don't know what she's saying, and I know she's feeling left out. But I'm sorry, I just don't see you on my screen anywhere. You're just swirling.
I was going to say I asked for 5 more minutes.
You can have it. Thank you.
I would just say to Brian, switching to 11 o'clock wouldn't exacerbate the situation you described about residents. It would actually make it more conducive to their ability to park their car at 9 o'clock, because right now the time on Rhode Island Avenue goes later than that.
Goes to 12.
And so I think you would make the situation better. That's why I think 11 o'clock is like the happy median, where if you're a resident, you could park at 9, you're good to go. And it allows that business flow to go through dinner time until 11, when the only people left drinking are Mayor Miles and Brian Nedler because they have nothing else to do.
And I like chocolate wine. But and all aside,
And I drink at home, not at the Mediterranean Cafe.
I drink at home too. I'm with you, Brian. But if I get to the Mediterranean Cafe and I decide to have one, I would love to have a place to park. And they're gonna take my little parking that allow me to park places, so I'm gonna be in trouble. I don't think we have a
parking place at City Hall.
They're gonna take that down and give it to Selena.
Oh.
And I'll show up there, and Selena be saying, "Could you come move your car, Mayor? You're not the mayor anymore, or whoever wins this election." So that's okay with me. I plan to stay home more.
Once mayor, always mayor. I park there.
Hey, you know what? Once a mayor, always a mayor. That's the written rule. But I ain't finna get thrown out of Mount Rainier. Another thought, though, Brian, Luke, that I'd like to offer you is that, on the north side of Rhode Island Avenue, there are a lot of apartments up over there where people live. And the problem that pops in my mind when you say residents can start parking there at 9 o'clock is how you going to know they're residents. Are we going to have to issue a permit, a sticker, or something that says I am? I can tell you that if my former council member still lived at the corner of Bunker Hill and whatever that other street is, and he looked up and saw those cars from over there at Atmosphere, parking over there on those new streets, he would probably blow a gasket. So I don't think we're going to make it easier by making it 11 o'clock for everybody and saying The residents can park at 9. The other offer that was made 20 years ago for all the residents that live anywhere near Rhode Island Avenue, Bunker Hill Road, and Perry be issued one of those stickers that they put in their window, which would identify them from the people catching the bus and parking there all day, off from the people who take up the parking spaces. Susan Bailey thought it was a great idea. Cindy Alexander might also have some information on that. I don't think you have a solution to your parking meters. I think you have one limited report for one shift that does not set trend. It does not give you what's out of kilter with that report. I think you need more data than one report.
Yes, you do.
Thank you. You're back in there, Selena.
I've been here a
You
lot.
have the floor. You have the floor, Selena.
No, so I agree with you guys that it'll take not just 3 or 4 different dates, but I think it has to show consistency, because if the numbers are where they're at, it could potentially be because they're not patrolling, they're not enforcing parking maybe the same way. So we're going to be getting our data based on that. I think we could go through the report, go through it, and if there's another option, if we see we cannot figure this out, maybe start looking into a parking study, because you do have the businesses, you do have the apartments, you do have the various things. So maybe it's going to end up being there, just like we did with tool design, like it made our life a lot easier to solve. So I will stay at that, but yeah, so it's more complex than a simple report, and maybe just one time. And the good thing about having the meters that we have is like it could be changed and adjusted, but I don't want us to make it so inconsistency that people are automatically getting citations because they don't even know where what the cutoff periods are at. So definitely a lot more work to do with this.
I know we're way past time, and they done told us about time. Brian, I was going to ask you to please come back so I can look you in the eyes when I make this statement. Selena and Luke or Scott, I'm not sure who else said it, about this parking study. I'm certain the 5 we've done may not be able to be found in City Hall, but we've had 5 parking studies. We've also had a parking task force. I would also say, in defense of those parking studies that we had in our downtown area that we paid quite good money for, the places changed tremendously, but the parking spaces have not. The businesses are pretty much the same. The residential area has gotten a little bit bigger because we've added some more homes on Perry Street. But in terms of parking studies, we've had 4, if not 5. There are parking studies at City Hall. So
Mayor,
if you're willing, if you can find them. Brian, you were on a council when we appointed a parking committee, right?
I have a copy of one of them somewhere.
Can you send that out so we have a sense of what the problem is, especially if it's the same thing?
It's useless. It's so old, and
Is that bad?
Things have changed. The ground has changed. It's not.
Yeah, completely. How old is it, Brian?
I think it was done in the late 90s, wasn't it, man?
Late 90s, early 2000s.
That's a whole different city.
Yeah.
But also all of my documents, which I could have given you, all of the studies, are now somewhere in somebody's dumps thanks to the flood. But City Hall should have copies if you all can identify or find them. And I won't say all the data is useless. The streets have not changed. So the number of parking spaces you have are pretty much the same, minus the ones we took away for a state highway or metro or somebody on Rhode Island. And we also took away some on Bunker Hill Road, and we in front of Joe's, if I make no mistake, and we added a couple. But basically, your parking meters and your parking areas are just about the same. The ones on Perry in front of the Hilt Building or wherever the Sanger Building, they used to be angle parking, and I can't remember what they are now. They went to parallel at one point. So I'm not sure what they are now, but you got basically the same parking spaces. You didn't grow any space.
Right,
I
but
see
fast liquor is gone, and that was one of the big factors at that time.
But they had a parking lot. They had two whole big old parking lots.
Yeah, but they had
And
people.
they were rarely the reason for not having parking. Biker parking was at party time where they lined the streets 2-car deep.
Yeah.
Saw your hand, Scott Cecil.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask the city manager, Latasha, would you be able to get back to us about how, we need more information. So can you get back to us about whether that information exists or how cumbersome it's going to be to get to us? And then 2 other quick things. Mayor, you mentioned the stickers. I love that idea, but when I brought it up in a meeting in 2019, Chief Morgan said that with the new smart meters, that it automatically notifies the police officers if somebody parks there.
I agree with you.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that's a thing. And then a couple months ago, I sort of randomly put an agenda item without a lot of notice to you guys on the menu about potentially using the parking lots off of 35th and Perry Street. And it didn't seem like people were super into that idea, but now we're going to own the building and the parking lot. So just pointing out those 17 spaces, maybe those can be utilized by residents who live somewhat nearby overnight or something like that. So just wanted to keep that idea on the table potentially.
Don't want to disagree with you at all, because those will be the less used. They also currently use the parking lot that we already own for overnight parking. But a lot of folks from outside of our area park there now too. And their cars get stuck there when you need to have them move them. Anyway, thank you all for such a dynamic conversation on parking meters. But as Brian and I said earlier, those are things you all will now need to think about. There is some history around parking, or should be, at City Hall. It has been an ongoing issue, not a new one. Commercial trucks on the street in front of 34th, issue. New. Did I finish the agenda? Somebody need to tell me, because I'm ready to adjourn.
I'll
Motion
move.
to adjourn.
Second.
May I get a second?
Got it.
All those in favor of adjourning, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Good
Aye.
night to all of you. Thank you. I got one more work session to go. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Thanks to the staff.